Hi there, Chris Harper here from hiredgun.tech. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create an animated Power Apps button that you can customize yourself to use in your own apps. So let's take a look. So here's the fully functioning and very distinctive button. It consists of three separate Power Apps controls overlaid on each other to produce the overall effect, and the button itself is driven by a timer. Now, as usual with Power Apps, it looks complicated, but it really isn't once you get to know the technique and apply some simple CSS. So let me deconstruct the button and I'll take you through each control in turn. So first we have a HTML box, and we use just three properties for this box. And two of those properties are the height and width, both of which we set to 150 pixels for demo purposes. In a real app, we'd make the button quite a bit smaller. The third property is the HTML text itself, and this is the important bit, so let's look at this in detail. The first and last lines that you can see in the dialog box are simply HTML defining a container for the inline CSS, which is the 3 lines of CSS code in the middle. These 3 lines define exactly how the button looks. The first line of CSS specifies the height, and you can see this is 1 pixel smaller than the 150 pixels we specified for the HTML text box itself earlier, and there's a good reason for that. If we make the CSS height 150, we end up with a scroll box. So always define the CSS height to be 1 pixel smaller than the HTML box itself. The second line of CSS defines the border radius. Now we've set the height and width of the HTML text box to 150 pixels, and here all 4 border radii are 75 pixels. And this gives us a perfect circle. The third line of CSS defines the background gradient and how the button looks, and has 2 parameters. The first parameter specifies the direction of the gradient in degrees, and we can assign any value. But actually, I'm not going to assign a fixed value here. I'm going to assign a variable called var rotation, so we can dynamically change the direction. The second parameter of the background gradient is the color. You need a minimum of 2 colors for there to be a gradient, but you can add as many as you wish. Here I have a 3-tier gradient going from green to yellow to red. Now you can see I've used the base color palette here, but I'm not limited to that. I can use hex or RGB colors, so we have millions of color options available to choose from. So that's it for the HTML box and inline CSS. The second control used to create the button is just a solid fill black circle icon. Height and width is 100 pixels, so 2/3 the size of the HTML text box. Nothing more to see on this control, simple as that. Now the third control is an actual button, and the height and width properties have also been set to 150 pixels to exactly match the size of the HTML text box. The text is split into 2 lines by using the ASCII character 10, which is a line break. You can see the button text is yellow and it has got a black border, all of which you can change to your needs. What you must do though is to keep the fill color as transparent, so when the button sits above the HTML text box, you can see the fancy CSS underneath. So finally we come to the timer control, which has the following properties. The duration property is set to 50, which is a 20th of a second, and repeat is set to true. We use onTimerEnd to define the value of the var rotation variable to set the direction of the border gradient. Here you can see the value of the variable will increment by 10 every time the timer completes a cycle. Because a full circle has 360 degrees, it takes 36 cycles of the timer to complete a full rotation, which is just under 2 seconds. Okay, that's everything you need to create the button. So let's reconstruct. Depending on the sequence in which you created the controls, you may need to change the order so the button is at the top and the HTML box is at the bottom. Now we'll run the app, manually start the timer, and you get the striking effect of the button rotating, which looks really cool. I've also made the hover fill of the button green with a transparency of 0.4, so you can hover and get a subtle effect so your users know the controls of the button, and you still see the CSS background gradient rotating in the HTML text box underneath. To complete the app, we'd set a Boolean variable to be true using the onVisible property of the screen, and we then set the start property of the timer to the same variable, so the timer starts automatically as soon as the screen's loaded, and immediately the button starts rotating. The timer stops automatically if we navigate away from the screen and restarts when we return. Now, there are many options to change the look of the button in terms of shape, color, direction, and speed, all using those 3 CSS lines. So I really hope you get the opportunity to experiment and use this technique in your own apps. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. I'll be posting more videos, so if you found this one useful, then please like and subscribe, and there's more Power Apps info on my website, hiredgun.tech. So thanks for watching, and for now, fare thee well.